Back when I was fresh out of college, trying to make my way, I found this little rental house on the south side of town. It was nothing fancy, just a two-bedroom bungalow with a big oak tree in the front yard and a rusty old mailbox by the curb. The street was quiet, mostly older folks and young families. It felt super safe, the kind of place where you leave your bike on the porch and don't even worry. I worked from home a lot, doing graphic design stuff, so I spent a ton of time alone in that house. It was peaceful, mostly. That's how it started. Just little things. At first, I'd hear faint whispers, not like words, more like a soft murmur, like someone was talking just outside my window. I'd pause my music, strain my ears, but then it would stop. I always blamed the wind or the old pipes in the house. Sometimes, I'd think maybe it was the neighbors, but their house was a good distance away, and their voices usually carried more clearly. I'd walk around the house, check the windows, even peek outside, but there was never anyone there. It was always just me, the quiet street, and the rustle of the leaves in the big oak. I figured I was just tired or my imagination was playing tricks. I mean, who hears whispers in a perfectly normal house? As the fall came on and the air got colder, the whispers started getting a little clearer. Not actual words, not yet, but I could tell it was a voice. Sometimes it sounded like it was calling my name, almost like a question. Sam? I'd jump every time, my heart thumping. I'd rush to the front door, pull back the curtain, and peer out. Nothing. The street was always empty, the houses dark. The strange thing was it always seemed to come from the front yard, specifically from right near that old rusty mailbox. I started to dread going out to get the mail, but hey, bills don't pay themselves. One evening I was walking down the driveway, the last bit of sunlight fading. It was getting chilly and the air was thick with fog, the kind that makes everything feel close and damp. As I reached the mailbox, I heard it, clear as day. A voice, low and raspy, right from the opening of the mailbox said, "Look inside." I froze. My blood ran cold. It wasn't my imagination. It was real. I practically leaped back, stumbling up the porch steps, my heart hammering against my ribs. I raced inside, fumbling for my phone. I tried to call a friend, but they were out, probably at a party. I tried to record the sound, but when I played it back, it was just static. I called my landlord, an old guy named Mr. Henderson. He mostly just grumbled about rent and fixing the leaky faucet. When I tried to explain about the whispers in the mailbox, he just cleared his throat and said, "Houses make noises, son. You're probably just stressed." He basically hung up on me. My attempts to get help only made me feel more alone and more ridiculous. But the whispers didn't stop. They got bolder. They started to tell me things, really unsettling things. "You left the front door unlocked." They'd hiss, and I'd check, and sure enough, I had. "The cat misses you," they'd murmur. I don't even have a cat, but I did, years ago, when I was a kid. How could it know that? It was like someone knew me, knew my habits, knew my past. I started getting paranoid. Every shadow in the house felt like it was moving. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, certain I heard my name being whispered right next to my bed. I taped up the windows, pulled the blinds tight, and tried to ignore it, but the feeling of being watched, of being known, grew stronger every day. I was living in a constant state of fear, jumping at every creak of the old house. Then came the night it all hit, its terrifying peak. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. The fog outside was so thick you could almost touch it. I was trying to sleep, but the whispers were a constant chorus now. Not just from the mailbox, but from everywhere, all around the house. They were louder, more demanding. A cacophony of distorted voices all blending into one chilling plea. "Come out. We need you." It was unbearable. The fear was crushing, but mixed with it was this weird, desperate need to understand, to make it stop. I couldn't live like this anymore. My hands trembling, I grabbed a heavy-duty flashlight from my nightstand. My mind was screaming at me to stay put, to hide under the covers. But some strange, horrible impulse pushed me forward. I had to see. I had to know. I tiptoed to the front door, heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, I turned the lock and pulled the door open, just a crack. The cold, damp air instantly enveloped me. I pushed the door open a little wider. just enough to step onto the porch. The fog was so dense I could barely see my hand in front of my face. I aimed the flashlight beam towards where the mailbox should be, and the powerful light cut through the mist like a laser. The moment the light hit the mailbox, the whispers crescendoed. They erupted from the mailbox slot itself, a chorus of voices, louder than anything I'd ever heard, echoing the very words that had plagued me for weeks. "You found us! You found us!" Then, a single voice, clear and cold, deeper than the others, spoke directly from the mailbox slot. "Come closer." And then, from inside the narrow opening of the mailbox, something started to emerge. Slowly, wet and dark, it pushed its way out. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a hand. A pale, gnarled, too thin hand, impossibly long fingers twisting, struggling to push through the small metal slot. It looked wrong, not quite human, not quite skeletal. It reached out, blindly grasping at the air, as if trying to feel for me, or perhaps to... I heard a sickening, squelching sound from inside the mailbox, like something shifting, rubbing against metal, and a low, guttural hissing noise, as if something much, much larger was trying to squeeze its way through that impossibly small opening. The entire mailbox began to tremble, vibrating violently, threatening to rip itself from its post. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered to the porch, its beam pointing uselessly at the ground. I let out a scream, a raw, primal sound I didn't know I could make. I stumbled back, slamming the front door shut with all my might. I didn't even think, I just started dragging anything I could find. A chair, a small table, a heavy bookcase, to barricade the door. My breath came in ragged gasps, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. I don't remember much of the rest of that night. I know I called 911, babbling incoherently about a hand in the mailbox, about whispers, about something trying to get out. The dispatcher was calm, almost too calm. She listened patiently, then suggested I might be experiencing a lot of stress, or perhaps needed to talk to someone. She said they'd send a patrol car for a drive-by just to check on me, but I never saw one. I spent the remaining hours of darkness huddled in my bedroom, every light on, the TV blaring at top volume to drown out the horrible, phantom whispers that still seemed to echo in my head, faint and insistent, calling my name, telling me to look again. The moment the sun finally broke through the fog, I grabbed a single bag, threw in a few clothes, and walked out of that house. I didn't even look back. I just got in my car and drove. I broke the lease, lost my security deposit, but I didn't care. I couldn't stay there. I never went back. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, maybe getting up for a glass of water or walking my dog, I swear I can still hear a faint whisper, just at the edge of hearing, calling my name. It tells me to check the mail. What do you think, listeners? Was it just my mind playing tricks on me, finally breaking under the stress of living alone? Or was there really something in that mailbox, something ancient and hungry, waiting for someone to finally open it wide enough? And if it was real, what happens to the people who still live on that quiet, tree-lined street? Do they hear the whispers too? Do they check their mail? It's a question that still keeps me up some nights.